Good evening. If you don't know me, my name's Dave Hamaker. I'm, of course, a member of the Napa Valley Club. Napa Valley Model Railroad and Historical Society, not the club. And this is going to be on weathering. It's my basic things that I've learned over the years. It's not rocket science. It was done, and I do it with water-based paint and chalk. No airbrushing. Don't use enamels. I do this in the house. My wife got a little upset when I used enamels. She's not too happy when I bring something in that's been freshly dull coated, but after a while she passes out and it doesn't matter. So anyway, I handed out our little worksheet here that kind of goes through the materials. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask. I will try to give you a coherent answer that, or if I'm going too fast or I don't make sense, raise your hand, let me know. So we'll start with the materials, and that's quite a list here. I use Model Flex paint. The colors I use are light Tuscan oxide, maroon oxide, dark Tuscan oxide, rust, SP lettering gray. As you can see there, anything with a brownish earth tone hue is what you want to use. If you're using chartreuse, periwinkle, and mauve, you're in the wrong business here. Okay. I've also started using Model Master acrylic paints, which are, again, another acrylic paint, and they have the same type of colors. They're a little bit different, and they work pretty good. Their colors that I use are leather, burnt sienna, the roof brown, which is a nice dark brown, of course flat black, camouflage gray, raw umber, and burnt umber and rust. And those are all the different colors that they have. That's the names of their paints. So if you go to the hobby store and you're looking for different colors, these are what you can start looking for instead of trying to figure out which one is which. Of course, I use dull coat out of a spray can. I use gloss coat out of a spray can, which are these right here. Something else that I use is what we call workable fixative. It's used in the art industry to seal chalk drawings. And it works really well, particularly on the lighter chalks. Like if you want to do a cement car that's got leakage on it, and you put that white chalk or dark light gray chalk, it will not make it disappear like dull coat will. So it doesn't keep it as bright, but you can keep doing layers over it. But it doesn't make it go away like dull coat does. It used to be so frustrating that I'd get a cement car to look just the way I wanted it, and I'd go and dull coat it, and it was like I hadn't done anything. So this doesn't quite take it all away. It'll give you a good representation of what it is. It's not as good as airbrushing it down or whatever, but it will keep that light hue in there, so that will help. And then the other thing that I use when I get a car that does not have a silver roof, such as one of these AccuRail cars, is Tester's silver paint. I think they call it bright silver. It's just their basic paint. When you use that, you need to be very careful because for some reason spray paint is able to get inside little crooks and nannies, whatever they have on English's. Geez, I can't even speak tonight. Thomas's English muffin, nooks and crannies. That's the word I was looking for. So anyway, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that. Chalks and pastels. We have different chalks. You can get them in actual sets that have the different colors in them, which makes it nice instead of having to go down and buy the individual. And you can see you have those. Okay. And then here's one of my later ones, or earlier ones. And you can get these at just about any art supply store, Michael's, something like that. And that's something I discovered a few years ago, and now everybody has discovered it. And I really like these. They call them pan pastels. They come in these little jars. They are very expensive, but they last forever. I bought some of these about 5 or 6 years ago, and I've still got them. So you don't have to shave it. You don't have to use a sandpaper. It's just take that top off, take your brush and rub it in there, and you don't have quite the mess that you do with the you still have a little mess. And you'll find out when you rub your nose or your face. But these are a little pricey. They're about $8 a tin, or plastic, or whatever you want to call them. You can get these, again, probably at Michael's, but I've seen them on MB Klein, Model Train stuff. They actually sell the sets, and they actually come in a big pallet like this with all the earth tones in them. They're about $50. You get about 7 of these, and they give you a few little brushes. So when you think about it, yeah, that's kind of a hit for 50 bucks, but you know, it's shave these or do this, however you want to do it. Neither way is better. Okay. But anyway, these are pretty cool. I like them. They seem to adhere a little bit better. So that's what and then something I was looking at, and I'm always looking for new things, and something I found today at the dollar store was eye colors. And I haven't used them yet, but I thought, you know, there's a lot of earth tones in that, and what they do is rub on their eye, and you could probably dull coat it or seal it somehow. This costs $1. This alone costs $7. If these work, that's probably a good deal. They do have a black in there, so you're not probably going to get your oranges and reds out of it, because I don't see too many ladies with orange eyes. But again, I'm always looking for something a little bit different, and that's kind of how I came up with this idea on doing my weathering. And that's where we come up with the sponges. Oh, skipped one thing. The other thing that I started using recently are pencils, colored pencils. These are Faber-Castell. They're kind of a chalk pencil. And when you want to do a little tiny rust streak, and you sharpen these really sharp, you just drop it right down out of like a divot in the car. So you can get a little bit of a rust streak there, and then when you put the chalk on, it kind of takes away the brightness and the hardness of it. So I'll show you that a little later. So sponges is the main thing that I use to get the paint to do the paint with. This is what I started with. If you guys are familiar with Athearn, these are the old blue box foam sponge that came with the locomotives. Great stuff for this. You can't get it anymore unless it's not worth buying a whole locomotive, just get the foam. But this works really well, and this is what I first started using. As this has become more scarce, I tried these. They work pretty good. I'll try this tonight and give you an idea. It works a little bit different. The key to all this is making sure it's dry. It's like dry brushing. You want to keep, you're going to dab the paint, but you want to get as much of that paint out of the sponge as you can. And then when you dab it on, it won't leave such a big mess on there. So this is the key with the paints. Paint brushes come in handy, and those come for the chalks, and of course you can buy, I use fairly inexpensive paint brushes. At our local hobby shop, they've got them for 59 cents, and I'll go in there and grab some of those. I do have some of the more high-end ones. Just this one I particularly use for my, when I do decal work, and I use the solvent set on it, because you don't want to use one of these and slobber it all over the car. So I use a finer point. If you want to get some finer points, and these are usually fairly pricey if you get but I went in today and they had a set of these, which are $6 for 6 brushes. And they're the nice artist brushes. They are camel hair, they say. And I use these to do the very minute type things. And also for using dull coat, or not dull coat, solvent set or microsol. So you can save a little bit of money if you look around and find those, instead of buying the $4 paintbrush, because I got tired of using $4 paintbrushes and then finding them next time and I forgot to clean them. And then I had a $4 stick. Okay, toothpicks, which are right here. Again, you can get these anywhere. I got these at the dollar store. They come in handy for painting, especially if you want to paint eyebrows on one of your little HO scale men. You can slice that down as narrow and as fine as you want. And, again, if you're doing little rust streaks or what have you, take care of that with a toothpick, and when you're done, you just throw it away. Don't have to clean it, don't have to worry about it, and you can keep shaving it down until you can't hold it anymore if that's what you want to do. These, again, very cheap. Micro brushes, you've probably seen these. They're little, fine little brushes with that look like that. And again, you dip it in your chalk and just drop it down for rust streaks. And they come in really handy. They also work really well, again, for putting on solid set or that sort of thing when you're doing decal work. So to get that thing to settle down. And these are, again, like $2.29 for a pack, so they can be a little pricey. Next up would be the citrus hand cleaner, like this, and Solvaset. And I use these two products to remove decals when I want to, or not decals, remove lettering so I can put new decals on when you want to change numbers on a car. That's what I use for these. So, you know, you come down here, you want to check in a car, and somebody's come in and beat you to it, checked in that car, because then they take it home and they're going to weather it, and it's still in Roseville. And you know who you are. And I'll show you how to do that tonight also. I put 400 grit sandpaper, just any sandpaper, and that is for your chalks to get the chalk dust off them. The 2000 grit sandpaper I use for when I'm removing the lettering. I'll put the Solvaset on it and then fold a piece of that, and I'll show you again how I do that. But just the point of it, just very gently remove that. So don't go through into the bottom layer of the paint. X-Acto knives, they're always handy and always dangerous. So you'll need those for cutting certain things. If you use the back of it, you can also use these very gently. If you're very gently, to scrape that number off. Once you put the either one of these two products on it. Emery boards. I got these at the dollar store. How much did they cost? $1. Anybody? $1, that's right. And again, you can use these to scratch your chalk on, and then you're not having a great big, and I usually just do it right on here and then use this as a palette to get the chalk dust off instead of spilling it all over everything. Okay. Here's an interesting, and this was something I really was surprised at, makeup brushes. And they come in different sizes and different, these are kind of a little harder, and these work really well for bigger areas if you want to do some weathering with a lot of dust and grime, particularly if you're going to do locomotive smoke on the top of the locomotive. These are really good for that. You can get a lot done, and there's no brush streaks with these. Okay. And of course we have this one, and just different sizes. I found some of these at the dollar store. You go to CVS or somewhere and go into the makeup area. I know, and if you can find these, they can be pretty pricey. I saw some that were like $6, and I thought, wow. But you can find them for cheaper than that. Of course, these are $1, but you can find them for $1 or $2 or whatever, and they last forever. I haven't tried washing them out, but I'm sure you can. If you don't, just make sure you use the same color with that every time. Label it or whatever you want. That way you're not running through them. I've grabbed one color and dipped it in the other color and ended up with a color I didn't plan on getting. So that's just something to think about. Q-tips, again, those come in handy for cleaning up. If you made a little mistake, they'll clean up a lot of that. Chalk, they're good for if you're doing decal work to soak up extra water or extra solution, setting solution, whatnot. Modeler's masking tape. It's like this, it's very low tack. It comes in different widths. I think this is a 1/4 inch. And that is really good if you're going to have to mask a car off. And so using masking tape or even the blue painter's tape is still a little tackier than you want. This stuff's really good, but you need to make sure that you get it down, especially if you're spraying with silver paint, because like I said, this stuff will sneak in there and you'll have big blotches down the side. So, last but not least are Band-Aids. I didn't bring any. If you have one of these, you're going to need Band-Aids. I still need Band-Aids. These are extremely sharp. Have you played with one yet? No. You don't play with them, you work with these. The key to using one of these is you use them like a pencil. You don't use them like this. And here's a safety hint that I'm going to tell you right now, and some of the guys here have heard this, and this is a true story that I learned the hard way. When you're working on your desk, blah, 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 and this thing rolls off, do not. Because what's your first thing if a little part rolls off? You got to catch it. I got to catch it. Yeah, I caught one of these. I did, and it went to there, and it didn't take much pressure. So then there wasn't any pain at first, but there was the thought of, I got to pull that out. Yeah, and I was like, okay, pulled it out, and then it hurt. I did go to the ER for that. It swelled up. They said, oh, you're fine, whatever. I think they got a tetanus shot out of it. And once the swelling went down, that bruise was about that big in every color of the rainbow. There was colors in there I didn't know existed. There was black and purple and yellow and green and everything. So, and of course, everybody's got scars. If you're right-handed, your left hand is scarred up. If you're left-handed, your right hand is all scarred up. Just the way it is. Be very careful with these. Any questions?